Hello everyone and welcome back to Oudh Enders. My name is Max and I just want to thank everyone for watching and just the amazing support on the first video that I put out ever on this channel. It was a review of my very first fragrance, which is Bleu de Chanel, and I just want to thank you guys so much for almost hitting 1,000 subscribers on a channel that I basically just started. Now, if you're new here, this is a channel based around enthusiast sort of fragrance discussions. I'm essentially just going to yap to you about one of my favorite hobbies, and if you enjoy it, that's absolutely wonderful. So the months are getting colder, and it's time to break out some heavier fragrances. So I picked out some of my personal favorite fragrances to wear in the fall. Just a bit of information before we get into the video. My thought process for this video is I love the season of fall. I love that style of fragrance, just a heavier, denser, thicker, stronger style of fragrance that you maybe spray a little less of. That's what I think of when I think of colder weather fragrances like fall and winter. I'm going to show the notes based off of popular demand in this video, but just be warned, notes do not necessarily represent what the fragrance is going to smell like. It could say it has vanilla, but vanilla could be completely undetectable. So I prefer describing how the fragrance makes me feel and just the experience of wearing the fragrance. You know, the top, mid, and the dry down, and just how it is to wear. So let's get into the video. My thought process again was I wanted to provide 3 fragrances that I consider to be some of my favorites for fall that are completely different from each other in scent profile, even in use case scenario in some of these fragrances. So the first one I'm going to talk about to you is a fragrance by the house of Nishane. It's called Nishane Kredo. Now, if you're not familiar with this channel, the way I do things, we're going to talk about the entire thing. We're not just going to talk about the scent profile. So what do you get when you buy a Nishane fragrance? First of all, as you can see, the bottle is really gorgeous. I mean, just really thick, heavy glass. You have a nice, beautifully polished cap that is heavy. I mean, if you threw this at someone, don't do that, but I mean, watch out, because it's pretty heavy. The atomizers on Nishane fragrances as well are very wide, very dispersive, so be easy on the trigger, especially with something like Nishane Kredo, which we'll get into why. In terms of the presentation and the unboxing experience, Nishane, in my experience, is one of the most enjoyable unboxing experiences. You have very nice sort of silk in the box. The boxes have really cool designs, and it's generally very, very enjoyable. It feels very high-end, especially considering that you can find Nishane fragrances like this on discounter websites for, sometimes 60-70% off retail, which makes it an incredible deal if you love the fragrance. Now, I'll put the fragrance notes up on screen right now. Enders, do your job in post-production. Notes should be somewhere, okay? So this fragrance, which I will now, spray right on me, has notes of pink pepper, cardamom, osmanthus, oud, suede, and I believe there's sandalwood. This fragrance is considered to be a take on the Tom Ford Oud Wood DNA. We'll just sit him down right there. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Tom Ford Oud Wood DNA. It's a very famous fragrance DNA, but unfortunately, Tom Ford Oud Wood doesn't really last that long, and it's incredibly overpriced for what it is now. Now, this fragrance is, I would say, a quote-unquote dirtier, not dirtier in the sense of bad, but the oud is just very slightly more animalic. It has that sort of sting, that punch in the background. But it's not off-putting. This is a very smooth, easy-to-love suede oud combination. The top of this fragrance hits you with that pink pepper and that cardamom immediately. And cardamom is a note that I can pick up in fragrances. I have another fragrance that I love called Gris Chanel Extrait. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see that review. But it starts out very spicy, but smooth at the same time. You can really tell everything is very well blended in this fragrance. And as the fragrance dries down, you're going to get more of that suede and oud, and it just becomes almost like a velvet blanket, just a blanket of very smooth oud, woods, and leather. And again, this is not an offensive fragrance. You could wear this to the office. You could wear this really anywhere, not just fall, but probably don't spray a lot of it in the summer because it's really strong. The longevity on this fragrance, I would say for me personally on my skin, would be about, 10 hours, maybe longer than 10 hours. It's worth the money if you can find it on discounters, in my opinion. So let's go on to the second fragrance. The second fragrance is completely different than Nishane Kredo, and it is from the house of Maison Kurkdjian. It is called Amyris Homme. This is the Extrait de Parfum version. There is an Eau de Toilette as well. This is the Extrait. This fragrance is so versatile, but I particularly love wearing it in the fall. As with Nishane Kredo, we'll show you the bottle. I love the simplicity of MFK bottles. They're just really satisfying to look at. You have almost a hilariously simple presentation here. I mean, you just have like a very well weighted friction fit cap. The atomizer works extremely well, and it's overall, you can't really complain about the presentation. It feels great in the hand, and it seems smaller than it actually is. This is a 70 ml bottle, but it just seems like it holds much less than it does. Now, the unboxing experience isn't as good as Nishane Kredo. It just comes in sort of a cardboard-lined coffin that keeps it protected, but it's overall pretty good, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but I'm not sure if all MFK fragrances have this, because I only own one, but there is a bit of a design behind the label itself, and I think that is really cool. Now, put the notes up on screen, Enders, once again. This fragrance is one of the most beautiful, the most wearable, and the most enjoyable creamy vanilla wood fragrances that I can recall. It really is very amazing. It's spicy. There's cinnamon listed in the notes, and you can really tell it's in here, as well as saffron. But saffron in fragrances can sometimes go leathery. This is not a leathery saffron. This is a very spicy sort of, I guess, maybe realistic version of saffron. It's been a while since I've smelled saffron, but this fragrance is so versatile, but it shines in the fall because of the dry down. The dry down in this fragrance, because it's an extrait, sits closer to the skin because of the concentration of perfume oil. It has trouble projecting, but I think that the projection on this fragrance is totally fine for the type of scent profile that it is. I think if you were to wear this in high heat, it could get a little cloying, but I get away with it. I think it's quite fine. So upon first spraying the fragrance, the opening, you really get a lot of that cinnamon as well as the vanilla, and I think there's some tonka bean in here as well. So you get that sort of, it's sweet and it's woody, but the thing that really ties that all together is the fact that it is so creamy and there is nothing offensive standing out about this fragrance. There's no jagged edge. Everything is so beautifully blended together. Oh my God. You guys really have to get a sample of these fragrances. And guys, do not blind buy fragrances. Let me just say that in the middle of this video randomly. Sample, sample, sample. Just trust me on that, all right? I'll leave some links maybe in the description to samples that I can find for these fragrances. But MFK, Amyris Homme Extrait, a beautiful, creamy, woody vanillic fragrance. Absolutely fantastic. And the last fragrance I'll feature in this video is by far, the most complex fragrance. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like this fragrance gets talked about a lot, but in my opinion, this is one of the most unique, versatile, fantastic offerings that I have smelled in the past 6 months over my journey of sampling a ton of fragrances all the time. And I loved it so much that I actually waited a month and a half for a bottle of it, and it is this fragrance right here. It is called Ormonde Jayne Nawab of Oudh Intensivo. This fragrance is stunning. First of all, let's talk about the presentation. So when you get an Ormonde Jayne fragrance, it comes in sort of a magnetically shut coffin. And sometimes when you get fragrances, the fragrance itself is sort of wobbling around in the box, and you open the box and it's sort of sitting there, maybe half out of position. Not these fragrances. You actually have to sort of wrestle the fragrance out of the box. It really is tightly packaged, and I appreciate that because unfortunately, this one is not that cheap. So the bottle's obviously beautiful. This is the new 88 ml bottle. I believe there was a 50 ml of this previously, but they discontinued it in favor of this. There is some debate online whether or not this is reformulated. Some people say, oh, this is a shadow of its former self. It's so weak. If this is weak, I don't even want to try the original because it might make me faint. This is a very, very strong fragrance. I go nose blind to this sometimes if I spray it under my chest and it's constantly rising into my nose. So, as I mentioned, the bottle is absolutely beautiful. You get sort of slightly embossed gold lettering. The cap is super tightly fit. I mean, you really have to pull it off. And the atomizer is a bit of a fire hose. Maybe I'll be able to get that on camera a little bit here. I mean, just wide dispersive, and you can really, it's pressurized. You can really deliver the exact amount of fragrance you want to spray on yourself. Now that I'm absolutely covered in Nawab of Oudh, let's put the notes up on the screen real quick. As I mentioned, this is a very complex fragrance. This fragrance was inspired by Central India because of the Nawab rulers. That is what I read online. Sorry if I butchered that. But, oh wow, this is really strong. This fragrance starts out very spicy. There's a pimento note in there, as well as I believe cinnamon. You can detect that just immediately. And it stays throughout the entire fragrance. That pimento note is really the one that sticks out a little bit and provides that constant spicy nature to the fragrance. I would sort of say that the pimento is almost like you're eating a pimento. It really does tingle your nose a little bit when you smell it. But then you get the florals and the green notes. Green meaning it almost smells like, this is going to be weird, it almost smells like you sort of snapped a stick in half that isn't completely dry yet, and you smell the inside. That, you know, you ever break a stick and it's almost green inside? It leaves that sort of woody greenness at the top with the spiciness and with the florals. So there's rose in this fragrance, there's hedione in this fragrance, and I believe there might be magnolia and something else in this fragrance. So the way I describe it is, it's like a spicy, woody floral with that slight bit of oud right at the base that gives it longevity. The oud is almost undetectable. I think it's only there for longevity purposes, or maybe just it balances something out in the fragrance. But the way this fragrance transitions is amazing, because I mentioned it starts out woody, floral, spicy, then it just dries down and it retains the spiciness, but you lose some of those florals. Then it just gets woodier and spicier, and it just dries down to this beautiful sort of blanket of spices. And like I mentioned, it's very strong. Like, you have to be very careful with this stuff. You will go nose blind to it if you spray it right under your chest or even around your neck sometimes. So careful on the trigger with this one. Wow. One of my absolute favorite fragrances from Ormonde Jayne. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know how I did in this particular video compared to my last video. And if you haven't watched my last video, which is the very first video that I ever put out on this channel, I'll link it in the description, or maybe I'll put a card up somewhere. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the channel, hit the like button, and of course subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be putting out so many different types of videos. I will be putting out how I think about applying fragrances, maybe where to buy fragrances, because some people are confused. They think, Enders, you know, Max, how do you afford all of this stuff? What the hell? Well, the answer is I don't pay retail for any of these fragrances. I just don't. Like, because you don't have to. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. I really do appreciate your time. Let me know what you think of these fragrances, if you've tried them, or if you think they're interesting in the comments section. And I will see you guys in the next video, and hopefully the next stream, because I stream every single day at twitch.tv/Enders as well. Thank you for watching.